Lesson 1, Part B. There's also something special about the troisième group. It contains the verb aller, which ends in er, producing the sound e, like verbs of the premier group. But aller is really a verb of the troisième group because it's highly irregular. But we'll see that much later. About those 5 aspects of French conjugation that we mentioned at the top of this section, let's quickly run through aspects 3 and 4, although we'll go back to the other ones, meaning le mode, le temps, and l'avoir a bit later. But for now, let's just look at la personne et le nombre. You already know that la personne and le nombre, described by the following 6 little words, are the following: je, tu, il or elle, nous, vous, il or elle. Those little words are called pronoms personnels. Je being the pronom personnel representing la première personne of the nombre singulier. Tu representing la deuxième personne du singulier. Il or elle representing la troisième personne du singulier. Nous representing la première personne du pluriel. Vous representing la deuxième personne du pluriel. And il ou elle representing la troisième personne du pluriel. I'm pretty sure you know something about the closeness between tu and vous. Tu being used when you address one single person directly, and vous being used when you address more than one person directly. But in French, contrary to English, vous can also be used to address one single person, just like tu. But it is used, the vous, when there is a sort of politeness difference. So, you would address your child by tu, and you would address, the prime minister by vous. And so that's the difference between tu and vous. I could add something extra, which is really interesting, to new verbs. You can tell me, if you can, at the next class, which group they're part of. Tu and vous are associated with 2 verbs. Tu associated with tutoyer. Vous associated with vous voyez. So tutoyer means speaking to somebody using the tu. Being familiar with that person, etc. And vous voyez is the contrary. It's using vous in a manner of deference. So tutoyer and vous voyez, 2 new verbs, unless you already knew them. But anyway, we'll check that out in class. But be sure to tell me, if you can, in which group both of these verbs are. So that's it for the pronom personnel. I also know you know the verbs être and avoir, which are commonly used in French as auxiliary verbs, les verbes auxiliaires. But for the sake of staying true to the MLS method, we'll go through the auxiliary verbs a bit later. For now, we'll just conjugate être and avoir in the most simple tense, which is le temps présent of the mode indicatif, le présent de l'indicatif. You can check out, as a reference, the PDF document that I clumsily called auxiliaire.pdf, but it's not wrong. But for the time being, we're using those 2 verbs as just simple verbs conjugated in le présent de l'indicatif. So, before we see which situation indicates the use of être or avoir, which is very often different and opposite in English. Let's just see how those two verbs are conjugated. For the verb être, je suis, tu es, il ou elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils ou elles sont. As for the verb avoir, j'ai, tu as, il a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont. Now, maybe I exaggerated a little bit the liaisons with vous êtes, vous avez, nous avons, but it's pretty important to notice that as it's really important part of pronunciation, and I know that you guys really deem important to feel at ease with pronunciation. Anyway, so you can check out the box at page 8 of the cahier that was handed out to you, which indicates when to use the verb être. It's the same thing for the verb avoir at page 10. And in class, we'll go quickly through exercises, for instance, at pages 6 through 9 for the verb être, 10 and 11 for the verb avoir, and page 12 for both. So that's pretty much the second part of lesson 1. But before I move on to the next section, I'm going to ask you a tiny assignment. If you could check out this film, être et avoir, it has nothing to do really with the conjugation of those two verbs, but in a few weeks it's going to be an occasion for us to have a conversation during class. I'm going to ask you a few questions about the film, about the characters, etc. It's really a feel-good documentary film about a rural primary school teacher in France. It's going to be an occasion for us to sharpen our ears to a different accent than the usual accent in your workplace in Quebec, and it's just a way to push our ears towards understanding French by listening. I really think you're going to enjoy it. You can watch it with your children and your spouse or your friends. It's really a feel-good movie. Alright, so on to the next section.
L'écho qui va guide la voile et pousse sous ma voile.